Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. This is the first episode in our general knowledge series, and I want to start by giving you a quick overview of our company, Goventra. Goventra is a data and AI governance enablement firm. Our primary focus is building organizational literacy, strengthening governance culture, and supporting responsible data and AI practices. We explain governance in plain English, and we design our content so anyone can follow along. Whether you're new to the topic or already working with data, we offer multiple learning series. This is one of the very first one, which is our general knowledge track. It's designed for people who are hearing about data governance at work or at school, and you want to understand what it actually means. This video is for functional team members across organizations who may not be directly involved in data governance, but keep hearing about it and they need clarity. It is also for anyone who wants to understand why data matters, why governance matters, and how these concepts show up in everyday work. And if you're an early career professional or student exploring opportunities in data space, this series will also help you build foundational knowledge, especially if you're preparing for interviews or trying to understand where data governance fits in a bigger picture. So as I mentioned before, the series is one of our four that Goventra offers. We have an executive strategy series, which is designed for leaders who want to understand governance at a strategic level. We also have our everyday employee literacy series. There's also a set of technical governance trainings that we provide for folks already working in data governance with roles like data steward, data owners, and others who support governance operations. And finally, we have our organizational capability and culture series, which includes training for people who want to deepen their knowledge and prep for certifications. We help learners get ready for exams like CDMP and PMP at ITIL and other governance aligned credentials. A little bit about myself. I'm Eddie Hashemi. I'm a Senior Director of Data and AI Governance Enablement here at Goventra. I have about 15 years of experience across banking and managed healthcare with a strong focus on data ownership, stewardship, and governance maturity. I've worked extensively with AI governance as well, even though the term is still evolving and this industry is still figuring out what governing AI really means. A lot of my work has been around enterprise maturity assessments, executive roadmap development, and helping organizations build real governance capability. I am PMP and CDMP certified, and I'm also certified Scrum Master. Over the past few years, my focus has really been around data literacy, helping organizations understand data in practical and accessible way. And it's a pleasure to walk you through the content as we continue the series. So for some of you, this may sound very basic, but we wanted to start with the core idea. What is data? At its simplest, data is just information a company uses to run its business. But if we think about it on a personal level, we use data every day too. Your grocery shopping list is a set of data. And if you forget one item on the list, your data is essentially corrupted. And you end up coming back home thinking, what did I miss? Data is everywhere. It's invoices, customer names, product lists, payments, claims, reports, and yes, even your shopping list. Data is a digital ingredient that goes into every process, every system, and every decision organizations make. So why does data matter? Because companies make decisions based on that data. And just like your shopping list, if the data is wrong, the decision will be wrong. Examples include incorrect customer addresses, lost shipments, billing errors, and the list goes on. We also need to understand how data is generated, which brings us to the idea of data lifecycle. And once we understand that, we can talk about the data governance and what it is and why is it needed and how to protect the data and keep it reliable. So before we get into the aspects of data governance, we need to think about the life process and the life cycle of data. It's important that we have basic understanding of what that looks like. We don't need every technical detail, just the idea that, like anything living, your data has a lifespan. Data is created, then it gets stored, It gets used, it gets shared, it gets archived, and eventually it gets deleted. And to make this simple, let's go back to our shopping list analogy. When you decide what you want to buy, that's the creation of your data. When you save your list on your phone or you write it down, that's the storage. When you use it at the store, that's your usage. And if you text it to someone, that's sharing. If you save it for next week, that's archiving. And when you delete it because you don't need it anymore, that's deletion. Companies go through the same exact steps, just as much as at a much larger scale, right? They decide what data they keep, what data to share, what to archive, and what to delete. And sometimes those decisions are driven by regulations and compliance requirements. That is why governance exists. Governance makes sure each of these steps are done properly, consistently, and responsibly. Now, this is a very high-level view of the life cycle. In large organizations, you will hear terms like consumption layer, business intelligence layer, analysis layer, data warehouse, data lakehouse. Those are more advanced concepts, and we can cover them in our other trainings. For this session, we're keeping it simple. Just remember, the same way you think through your shopping list, what to add, what to keep, what to delete, organizations think through the data the same way. And that's a foundation of understanding of the data lifecycle. So what is data governance? Data governance is how a company makes sure that data is accurate, safe, and used the right way. It's all about the guardrails, the checks and balances that ensure data is handled properly. In reality, data governance means creating a set of trusted data that the decisions can be built on. It's not just about technical term. It's not about technology. It's about clarity, responsibility, quality, and protection. People are responsible to make sure data is accurate and clear. They're responsible for defining the ownership and accountability. They're responsible for maintaining the data quality. They're responsible for protecting sensitive information, the kind of data every company and government must safeguard for its clients and citizens. So data governance managers all of these responsibilities. It creates environment, the processes, and the framework that allow organizations to handle data with confidence. You'll often hear terms like operating model, governance framework. Those are simply structures that help manage the entire process. So let me give you a little bit of a prehistoric information about data governance and its involvement, right? Years ago, when organizations first started collecting and managing data, the focus was almost entirely on data quality. The mindset was simple. We just need to make sure data is correct. But as our dependency on data grew, as society and within organization, data governance expanded into something much bigger than just quality. It started to include regulatory and compliance requirements, privacy, defining who owns the data, clarifying roles and responsibility, and building policies and procedures around it. Organizations began forming steering committees, councils, and cross-functional groups where business and technology teams could collaborate and make decisions together. The entire ecosystem became what we now call governance process. So yes, data governance evolved from the early days of pure data quality, but quality is still one of the biggest components of governance. It's just no longer the only component. It's embedded within the much larger framework. And it's important to remember that modern data governance is a collective effort. Multiple functional areas across organizations contribute to it. They're responsible for keeping the data clean, accurate, trustworthy for their clients and for the organization as a whole. So we talked about what data governance is, and we touched a little bit on why it's needed. Now let's really look at why we need data governance in the first place. One of the biggest reasons is data rights and accountability. Remember, I said one of the biggest, not the only reason, but that's really the core objective of data governance. We want to make sure organizations have the right people, the subject matter experts, the team, the owners who are responsible for activities around data. We define those roles so everyone knows who's accountable. Now imagine working in an environment where nobody takes ownership of the data. Nobody's responsible for accuracy. Nobody's responsible for meeting regulatory requirements. It becomes chaotic. Everyone just throws their hands and says, that's not my area, or I didn't know anything about it. That's exactly what governance is designed to prevent. Ultimately, we're trying to protect customers, protect the company, reduce mistakes, and improve trust in the data. Think about yourself as a banking customer. You want to know that the information being processed about you is accurate, protected, and trustworthy. You want to trust the decision being made with your data. And at the end of the day, good governance makes our work and our lives easier. Data governance is invisible until it's missing. Once issues start happening, once things break, once you run into those little gremlins, that's when you realize governance process would have prevented the chaos. That's why data governance is needed. So one of the key things we want to talk about now is how data is actually governed. What is data governance made of? A simple way to put it is PPT. People, processes, technologies, and tools. Data governance takes a village. It requires collaboration between the people who understand the data, processes that guide how data is handled, and the tools that support those activities. Think of data governance as a responsibility of everyone in the organization, but with selected group of people who are formally part of the data governance framework and operating model. They contribute to the creation, maintenance, and enforcement of governance activities. That's a high-level view, but how do organizations actually enforce the data governance? They do it by creating policy standards and processes. They define the accountability matrix, often called the RACI, to identify who owns what and who's responsible for which activities. They assign data owners and stewards and other roles to make sure accountability is clear. And there are tools. You may hear names like Calibra, Informatica, and others. These tools support the governance process by helping organizations manage metadata, lineage, quality, and ownership. We also offer additional trainings in our series that get deeper into those tools and technologies and how they interact with the data governance program. So let's talk about the roles and responsibilities of the individuals involved in data governance. Governance only works when everyone participates. It's not a technical process. It's a cultural commitment to trust and transparency. Think about it this way. When it comes to data governance, everyone is involved, but certain people have specific responsibilities within the governance framework. First, you have the data owners. They're the senior leaders who own the data domain, for example, membership data, claims, customer count. They're the ones where buck stops, right? If something goes wrong in their domain, they're ultimately accountable. Data owners are also responsible for bringing in the new regulatory compliance requirements, whether they are coming from their state, federal, industry sources, and making sure those requirements are embedded within the governance framework within their domains. Next, you have the data stewards. They're people who take care of the data day to day. They make sure data quality is maintained. They follow standards defined by the data owners, and they monitor the accuracy and consistency across the domain. Then you have data custodians, technical professionals who manage the storage, protection, and system performance of the data. In some organizations, especially smaller ones, the data stewards and custodians roles may be combined into one person. You also have the Data Governance Council. This is a cross-functional group that brings together people from different areas of the organization. They discuss policies, resolve conflicts, especially around ownership and semantics, just to make sure decisions about how data should be defined and managed. And speaking of semantics, when we talked earlier about data lifecycle, you hear the word lineage a lot in data governance, right? Think of lineage like doing a DNA test on ancestry.com. You're tracing where the data came from, what happened to it, and how it got where it is now. Every data point should be traceable back to the source. Another critical part of governance is executive leadership. Top-down support is very important. Without leadership backing, governance doesn't get the visibility, authority, and resources it needs to succeed. And finally, every employee plays a role. Everyone needs to know how to use data responsibly, follow policies, and report issues. A lot of manual trainings you take, like security trainings, are actually part of data governance, even if they're not labeled that way. So whether you realize it or not, you already participate in governance activities at work. As mentioned earlier, the series is part of our general knowledge track, a very high-level introduction to data governance. And because the audience varies, we thought it was important to talk about career paths in this space. Some of you already be working in an organization and want to learn more about data. Some of you may be thinking about your next career move. So let's walk through a few of the roles you commonly see in data governance. We have data governance analysts who support governance programs. We have data stewards who are highly in demand, especially those who can translate the business requirements and technical requirements and bridge the gap between business, technology, and data. We have data governance managers who lead these initiatives, manage governance activities, and drive adaptation across the organization. There are metadata specialists who focuses on data about data. And let's touch a little bit on that. So metadata tells you information about data elements, where it came from, what happened to it, and how it moves across the organization. This is where the concept like lineage comes in. We explain data through metadata, which is another set of data. There are also AI governance leads who focus on ethical and responsible AI practices. And in many organizations, you'll see chief data officers or chief data executives who oversee the entire data governance strategy. We also have data custodians, we mentioned earlier, technical professionals who manage storage, protection, and system performance. We're not highlighting them on this page, but they're absolutely part of the ecosystem. Now, if you're interested in pursuing a career in this space, there are several certifications that can help. CDMP, which is Certified Data Management Professional. This covers the core data management governance principles. Last time I checked, the exam fee was around $300, and your score determines your certification level. PMP, which is your project management professional, not data specific, but extremely valuable because governance works involve managing initiative timelines and cross-functional teams. ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library. This focuses on services and process management, which aligns closely with governance operation. There are also certifications in data privacy, compliance, AI ethics that support governance careers. So whether you're moving into governance role within your organization or you're early in your career and exploring your options, we thought this page would give you a helpful overview of the opportunities available. So this is our recap of everything we covered this session. We have a couple more pages coming in future episodes, but for now, let's look at this bigger picture. Data is extremely important for every organization. It is vital how we process, run, decisions are made, and how companies operate day to day. Because of that, data needs guardrails. It needs structure, clarity, and the right activities around it to support it. Today, we talked about the roles and responsibilities involved in data governance and why those roles matter. We talked about why data governance is important, what happens when data governance is missing, and the kinds of issues organizations run into when data isn't managed properly. We also talked about career paths, whether you're already part of the organization, you become more data literate, or you're early in your career and exploring opportunities in data space. If you're preparing for interviews or just trying to understand the terminology, this session gave you a solid starting point. Again, this is a high-level introduction, but the concept and language we covered today will help you build confidence, understand the landscape, and take you to the next step in data governance. So now we talked about data governance. The natural question becomes, what happens with AI? What about AI governance? And this is really the core of ongoing trainings that Goventra is offering. We understand AI governance is only feasible when data governance underneath is strong, solid, and trustworthy. Without the right data foundation, building or managing AI becomes extremely risky. If you don't know how to govern your data, then developing AI processes inside an organization becomes a challenging, sometimes even dangerous. That's why our executive series, we focus heavily on helping leaders understand not just how to build AI, but how to govern it. And more importantly, how to govern it on the top of the data governance. If you have strong data governance, accuracy, integrity, lineage, ownership, then your AI becomes more trustworthy. When AI produces results, you can rely on them because the data underneath is reliable. That is the connection. Strong data governance achieves responsible AI governance. And you're going to hear the phrase responsible AI more and more. It is becoming the standard term associated with AI governance because organizations are realizing that AI must be guided by principles, ethics, and guardrails, not just innovation. So here's a closing message. Organizations that want to succeed with AI must first master data governance. These two are inseparable. One ensures the reliability of the other. Be sure to like and subscribe and join us for next episode, which is AI Governance 101. We explore how governance principles evolve to guide principal AI adaptation across the organizations. So we'd like to thank you for watching this very first episode of our high-level data governance training. Remember, Goventra Academy is where governance becomes practical. Our mission is to build literacy and capability across organizations, from executive shaping strategies to employees applying governance in their everyday work. Follow our learning series to continue your journey. You'll see the series listed below, and we'll be adding more, including an upcoming track focused on tools and technologies to help you get familiar with the platforms that support governance programs. Our contact information is below as well. We would love for you to join the channel, be part of the community, and stay connected. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when the new content is uploaded. We'll be posting continuously on a weekly basis. Thank you again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to our email, and feel free to visit our website for additional information. Have a wonderful rest of the day.